Once upon a time, Annie was frozen by her anxiety. She could hardly move or see joy anywhere, until one day she realized her own thoughts could thaw her from the inside. Annie began using her thoughts more and more each day until she warmed up. Then she discovered she was living in a beautiful enchanted forest, which she can now fully experience. This is Annie's manifesting success story.
Hello and welcome to this episode. I am your host, Cassie Parks, and back with interview number 14, I have Annie. Welcome, Annie.
Hello, thank you.
Hi. What's awesome?
Everything is awesome. Pretty much everything, yeah.
I love it.
It's great. Home life is wonderful. Yeah.
Amazing. And you just, we were just talking about something that you manifested, which is your neighbor. And you were just telling me an amazing story. So tell us how you manifested your amazing neighbor, who's more than a neighbor.
Yeah, well, I moved to Longmont 2 years ago, and I didn't really know anyone. I moved for some other reasons, not because I knew anyone here. And I was feeling pretty very far away from all of my friends, and I was starting to go down this feeling lonely, and I was like, wait a second, I can do something about this. And I out loud said, I want a friend that I feel really comfortable with. All of my friends live far away, and I want one close that we can talk and chat and go on walks and drink a glass of wine or tea or something. I want a good friend now. And 3 days later, my friend, I didn't know her at the time, but they live across the street. She's a neighbor of mine. We started talking, and with all of the time at home, the last few months, we've really gotten to know each other. And she has 4 kids, and she just. Well, 2 of her kids are her husband's kids, and they have special needs, and a lot like Leo's special needs. And she's on this crash course of learning all about them because she's the stepmom now, and she is getting teenagers with on the spectrum. So, and I know all about it. So it's kind of it's just an absolutely perfect friend for both of us. So, yeah, it's just. And it really is funny because I was like, wait a second, I can do something about this. Yo, universe.
Yes. Hey, yes. Oh my gosh. So awesome. And I just love that you're like, yep, let me just ask for it. Let me put in my order right now. I don't have to do this other thing. I can choose differently.
Yeah, it's incredible. It really is incredible.
Amazing. I love it. I want to just share the date in case because we kind of mentioned COVID. It's October 12th, 2020, which is, you just started basically your 3rd year in the Enchanted Circle. So your 2-year celebration was a couple of weeks ago. How do you feel?
I feel incredibly blessed to have found this path, and I'm extremely happy that it works so well for me. It's a perfect fit for me. And I'm so glad I stumbled upon your podcast and then really committed to it, because I think it's just very evident in my life that things are markedly different than they were 2 years ago.
Yes. And I'm excited to talk about that. I was just reading, the podcast just came up as a suggestion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. I love it.
Yeah. And I was at this time where I would have said I was in a depression, and I was very stuck, and everything I was doing wasn't working. And I was had lost hope a little bit. Mm-hmm. And my mantra was, I hate my life, like that. Mm-hmm. Not my mantra that I did on purpose, right. But the one the one that streamed through my head when my thoughts were calm and in quiet moments. And I'm so glad that is not the ticker tape that goes behind my head now.
Me too. Tell us, what is the ticker tape?
I'm blessed. Everything works out easily. It's so fun when I see things work out. Like when I have a little thing that's happening with my TV. Right now, I bought a new one a month ago, and it all of a sudden stopped working, and I can't find the receipt. And I'm not panicked. And it was an investment of a television, so I know I kept it. But I'm like, oh, I wonder how this is going to work out. And that is the biggest thing that I don't go to the dark side. How I was so stupid. I put that receipt somewhere. Like, no, it'll work out. It's somewhere here. I know I kept it. And I'm not guilting myself. Like, I'm not judging myself harshly and guilting myself. And that is one of the biggest things, I think.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I just want to point that out for listeners too, right? So in the I don't know, downward spiral section, if you're like talking to yourself, it's all like, what did I do? What did I do? And what I really hear is like, there's this releasing if something isn't going right, like, it's good. Like, it's going to work out. Not, I'm going to do anything. I didn't create it. It's not, there's nothing about how you created it. Just like, it's going to be so fun to see how this works out.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love it. Let's see. I want to talk about this because I don't want to forget. After our last interview, I wrote this down as a note. You were talking about something, or it might have been on the call that night, and you were like, I'm funny now. It was actually right after. You're like, I'm funny now. And I love it because it's so true. And do you remember why?
It's so humble. I think I'm amazing. Yes, I do remember. I censored myself, and I was so timid and scared. I can't remember the comment we were talking about, but my wit is, so much of my mind isn't going to worry and being nervous about how I'm going to be received or making sure I don't say the wrong thing, that I just am me. And I think I'm funny. And sometimes I check in with people who knew me. I'm like, I'm funnier, right?
That's awesome.
I think I only did that with you. I don't think I've done that a lot. But it's like, I'm free. I'm I didn't know that I was constrained and kind of riddled by worry and anxiety. I thought that was just my personality. Turns out it was not. It's not. So, yeah.
That's awesome. It seems in some ways like we can see it as little, but I think it's so huge. And I totally thought that because it's like, not censoring yourself, allowing yourself to be who you are, and whether or not someone else thinks it's funny is fine because you're enjoying life more. Like, it doesn't even matter, right?
Yeah. And there's some things where I do still worry, if I'm appropriate, for some reason, this is going to work itself out. But my relationships with some of my sister-in-laws, I feel a lot of oh, did I offend her? But that's starting, I know that's going to work itself out. It's much, much better. And now I'm like, well, it's not intentional if I did. So it's not out of malice.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, that's huge too. Just to even have that awareness, because that even opens up things even more.
Yeah.
I love it. And so while you're growing and shifting the relationship with your sister-in-laws, you've definitely done that with much more, with a lot of your family, especially your parents, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I really wanted stronger relationships with my parents and my nieces and nephews and my brothers and sisters. And I know the sister-in-laws are next because everybody, it really is. My mom called me this morning and we talked for an hour, and we have such a friendly, joyful, loving relationship now. Um, and it's just so fun. And she's like, oh, thanks for the chat. I'm like, oh, it's fun to start my day with you. And we're just very genuine and very heartfelt, and my relationships have all just transformed.
That's amazing. And you like going home. Like, you even just did it recently, like, oh, I have time and I can, like, let me go home, spend some more time, right?
Yeah, since my son was home from school for like several months, and I can work from anywhere, and so we went home for 3 weeks, and then a month or so later we went home for a week, and it was funny because I was complaining about the air quality. Well, I was not complaining. I was just saying, man, I haven't been able to bike because of the air quality. And my mom said, oh, the air quality is great here. Do you want to come home? And so I bought plane tickets and went home for the next week. And just that spontaneous, and that's part of what I wanted in my life, freedom and spontaneity. And I really have it. Yeah, so we went home. I've gone home a lot lately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that, because it's a great place to go. Like, now it's a great place to go, right? Like you said, you mentioned the air quality because we live in Colorado and there's been fires, especially close to you. And so being able to just say, like, yeah, this doesn't feel good, let me go somewhere where it feels a little better, is an awesome opportunity to have.
Yeah.
I love
it's
that.
really nice.
Yeah. Speaking of your mom, would you want to tell us what else you guys talked about this morning, since you have today off?
Yes. So this morning, Mom and I were talking, and I said, she said, oh, do you have to get going to your appointment? And usually Mondays are a very busy day for me. I usually have 8 scheduled clients. And I said, oh, no, I have an unexpected day off. It's a holiday I wasn't expecting to have off. And she said, oh, that's not good. And I said, oh, actually, she said, oh, that's not good. You need the money. And I said, actually, I'm good. Like, it's kind of fun to have a day off. I have lots of money. And I said something like, I don't need the money, or something like that. And Mom said, oh, don't let the universe hear you say that. And I said, I know the universe knows exactly where I'm coming from. I said, I wouldn't be surprised if I turn around and find $1,000 for doing absolutely nothing. And my mom's like, really? It's very different than I was 2 years ago. 2 years ago, loss of a Monday was most of my income. And so I would have been like, oh, I have to budget differently. And now I have multiple months of operating saved. And all of my credit cards have paid off. Everything is just ship-shape.
Oh, there's so many things to talk about. I love how you just slid in there. I have multiple months of operating expenses. Like, as if, which I love, this is who you're becoming. You are a professional budgeter. You are a badass businesswoman who, like, got her stuff together, which is awesome. I mean, that's who you are now, right? But it just kind of slid in there so easily. When, if people have been listening to the podcast, that is a work in progress. So I really want to celebrate just how easy that came out. Like, I have multiple months. It's all good. I feel good about that. I can share that. Yeah.
It feels really good. And I said, she's like, really? And I said, yeah. I said, do you remember? I told her about rewriting my money story. I said, you know how a couple years ago I started to rewrite my money story, and And she's like, yeah, I remember you mentioning that. I'm like, it really worked. I rewrote it. And every time I turn around, I find money, and all of my accounts are brimming with it. And she's like, can you rewrite my money story? And I said, I'll send you Cassie's information. And I sent her a text with your information. And I'm getting much more like open with sharing it, because it's made such a big difference. And I used to, I think because I'm a therapist, I put a little stigma on the fact that I'm working with a life coach.
I get it.
And I would like call you like my financial advisor, or but lately I've been sharing your information a lot because it's been transformative.
Oh, that's awesome. And what I love, I mean, I love everything about this story, but I want to highlight a couple things for people who are listening, because I get this question a lot, and this is such a great example. Like, you didn't think about, you've gotten to the point, and you can word it differently if I'm not saying exactly right, where you don't try and like change it for your mom. You're just owning your story. Like, no, actually, like, you don't get upset. Right.
Yeah.
And because I get a lot of questions, well, like, how do I tell somebody if because by some accounts of other people, they could say, like, if they had this interaction with their mom, they'd be like, well, she was being negative and this and that. But I would love to hear your keys to going through this conversation and how you owned it and how you've grown into, just talk about it from like a perspective of giving someone advice if they had a conversation like this, but they wanted to be different.
Well, I could feel the old way of that I would have responded. I like that needing to be in step with my mom and be like, it's not perfect, but I'm doing okay, or something like that.
Yeah.
But that didn't even come into my brain. It was like a shadow of a thought,
Yeah.
The way I responded, I didn't think. It was just very automatic. But the biggest change for me is that I didn't guilt myself about, oh gosh, I shouldn't have told my mom I have a lot of money. I shouldn't talk about money. Now, I had so much wrapped around that I should not talk about money. It's impolite to talk about money. It's not polite to say you have money, because you might make people feel bad if they don't have money. And, and all of those other things that I went through when we wrote down, like looked at my beliefs about money and figured out what my future self believes. And I can easily talk about money, and I know when it's appropriate, when it's not. I'm like, but so I feel like getting real clear on what you believe, and then when you notice the frequency because once you get clear and you notice the frequency, it's a visceral feeling of when you are in alignment with your future self and what you want in your life. And you feel when you dip out, and the more when you dip out, it feels horrible. And then you have to be like, I'm just kidding. I don't really believe any of that. I was just saying that so that person would feel okay. And so that's like wasted energy. Mm-hmm. And now I kind of feel like me living authentically, because I know that when others have lived authentically, it has given me the belief that I can do that too. And so if it doesn't resonate with someone, oh, it's okay. And I'm more and more when I'm talking to I don't do it in a rude way, mm-hmm. But when I'm in a conversation with someone and it doesn't feel good, I'll go, do you feel that? I feel that. I feel like, ooh.
Awesome.
You want to change the subject? Because I think, whatever it is, you can feel when it's heading down a path I don't want to go. Or I'd rather, we could go down there, but it doesn't feel good. So let's not.
Yes. So two key things I want to point out for listeners. What I heard you say is what I also believe is that there's no magic way to have the conversation. You have to become the person, and then the conversation happens. Like where you can tell your mom, like, no, the money faucet's on, everything's going great. Like, no, I have more than enough money, right? You can't prep or kind of train yourself to like, this is what I'm going to say back to my mom or my dad or my brother or my whoever if they say this, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's you doing the work, and I'm doing this for listeners, I know you do it. It's you doing the work, and then it comes out because you realize that you want to be your future self, and you don't want to hide that part of you. You want to share her and grow her and say like, yes, I have plenty of money in the bank for months.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels so good. And it's funny because I didn't, when my mom and I were talking, I didn't know we were going to be speaking about that. It came up real spontaneously. And then when she's like, oh, that's not good, I was like, it's great. I have the day off. I'm doing about some stuff. I'm, doing fun stuff. It feels good to have a day off, and I have another one off tomorrow. So
yay! Oh yeah, because tomorrow's your day off.
Yeah,
self-care day.
Yes.
I love that. Oh, it's so beautiful, so beautiful. Mm-hmm. And we've talked a lot about having multiple months in the bank account. And so, do you want to share what your August income was? Speaking of talking about money.
Do I want to share?
Was it quadruple? Was it triple what it normally is? I feel like you.
Well, before I went into private practice, and I made about. It was way more than I made. Like when I would get from the agency I worked from, mm-hmm. like $3,000, and it was more. It was $10,000. So, and it's funny because sometimes I'm like, well, maybe some people are like, that's chump change. Maybe someday I'll think that's chump change,
right? Of course.
It's funny to think about perspective, though, It
is. Well, and one of the reasons I think that's a number that most people that enter my world or coaches, therapists, a lot of people, like that's a number they want to get to. Mm-hmm. And I also know that like in the therapist world, it's not necessarily like, oh, this is where you can get to, right? Mm-hmm. And so, because I was I went to school, like I got my counseling degree, and so I know it's not taught. Like you can feel good. I think what you're proving and what I really want to share is you can help people, you can do your life's work, which can be challenging and dealing with some hard things, and you can make money, and you don't have to be burnout and feel like you can't even get off the couch, right? You can have it all.
Yeah. It's really fun when now so in my old position, I'd have 15 clients that were this type of client that was exhausting, that like it wasn't the client that was exhausting, but it was the whole case around the client and the court proceedings and everything that went into it. And at some point in time, I decided I did not want my whole caseload to be that. And I wanted my caseload to be people who are ready to grow and ready to change, and that my skill set fits perfectly, and that it's this blooming, it's fun for everyone. And more I get calls almost every day to work with that exact family and that exact situation, and it's so fun. It's so fun when you start to see what an integral part of your life you are. And I know that sounds funny, but
oh, say more on that, please, because it's so true. And we forget that, or we think we're just have to sort of be the reaction to everything else, but we are an integral part of our own life.
Yeah, and we can determine if we don't like what is happening, or you can completely change it. And it's just, I know that sounds so simple, that like figure out how you want to feel, make a list of things that make you feel like that, and do them. Like that is not complex, no blood transfusions or any complicated scientific equation to go into that. You know what I mean? Like right, no stem cell transplants. Like
right, yes.
But it is difficult, not difficult, but it requires consistent attention and devotion, I think, to deciding that how you want to feel and taking care of yourself so you feel like that.
Absolutely. Well, yeah. And I even I was reading, as we were getting on, as you were on your headphone hunt, um, I was reading how much you had sort of resisted Powerful a couple of months ago,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's simple, and yet it's that devotion, right, and that commitment. Like, okay, I'm gonna do it. It is gonna. I'm gonna commit to this. I'm gonna be in it. But I think that's where the magic happens. It's also where the hard work happens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was interesting because that was a key moment in coaching where you heard something in my voice. Like, I'm like, oh, I don't want to go that way. And you're like, oh, I think we're going to go that way. Which is why it's helpful to have like a compass, something kind of outside of yourself to help you see, because I would have steered clear of that because it was uncomfortable, but it was a different kind of uncomfortable. It was like the good kind of uncomfortable that brings growth, not the bad kind of uncomfortable that burns your hand.
Yeah.
I'm going to switch out my headphones really.
Yeah, go for it.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great. That's better. Thank you.
Awesome. You're welcome. Yeah, it's that uncomfortable in that. And so I love all that. And I wanted to ask, like, how powerful do you feel these days?
I feel super, it's so funny. I feel powerful. I feel like kind of like the rudder on my boat. Like I am determining which way I go.
Yes.
And I feel that, like, I can feel it here. And I know my friends and family hear it too, because they've mentioned, like, whoa, what's happened? And more people are noticing, because I used to, like, I'd have a conversation, like, after being with some friends, the next day I would call and make sure I didn't offend anyone.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't do that anymore. And I trust, if anybody needs to talk to me about anything, they will let me know. Because nobody has ever been offended. When I've been like that, nobody's been like, yeah, actually, when you said this, that really offended me. And everybody's been like, no. And I was overthinking it. And I might have got off I've forgotten your question. I don't know if I went off.
So you're powerful and you show up that way versus questioning every single thing, I think is what you're tying into.
Yeah. Like, I am aligned with me, and I know me, and I am me, and I feel so secure in myself. And yeah, it feels so good. And I think that's the power to be myself and to be me in my relationships and to stay me in relationships.
It's amazing. Amazing. I want to come back to that if we have time, but I want to make sure, because I'm not sure you mentioned this on the last interview, but during this interview series, and this is one of the things that's happened, which is why I keep notes, because our listeners are like, what happened with XYZ? Is we had talked about getting a machine for your son. Mm-hmm. And kind of working through, like, it's one of those things that was a real growth. And so you got the machine.
It did.
Like, and we can see now why you waited, why it wasn't right, why, like, you weren't inspired, why it wasn't the right time to get the machine, right?
Yeah.
You got grants. They came out with like a different machine that was less expensive, right?
Yeah. And we got 2 grants, and originally the machine was supposed to be $6,000, and the one we bought is $4,000, and a little less than $4,000, and our grants were almost that. And so, and I needed to really believe that it was a good investment. I just needed, it's a sizable amount of money. I wanted to make sure I was putting it, and it's been really helping him too. So that feels great, but it all came together really easily.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Yeah. I'm so excited. I just wanted to close that loop for our listeners.
Yes.
And also celebrate that your son has friends, which is things that we've been scripting and seeing. And really, everyone in the Enchanted Circle sees him in this joyous, highest light of all the things that you want to help him create in his life, which is really magical because he has his own little cheering squad. I feel like he doesn't even know about.
Yeah. Oh, that's so true. Yeah. It's so funny because right now what we're working on is um, not leaving the house to go play with his friends without telling me, like to tell me where he's going before he goes there. And which I mean, that's awesome. He's shaving on his own. He's doing so much. He came in yesterday. Sunday is shaving Sunday for some reason. He came in and he's like, "What do you think, Mom?" And so he has sensory processing. He's had sensory processing issues in most of his life where everything sounds louder, is real sensitive. And so shaving, which you wouldn't think would be that big, it was a lot to navigate for him. And
Yeah.
he did it all himself. And he's just getting more and more more and more independent. And I'm a like I've stepped back a bit with confidence, knowing he can do things, and um, and I'm kind of giving him the space to be able to do them,
Mhm.
and this, you're gonna get it. I know we're gonna get it. 5 years down the road, you're definitely shaving, so you're gonna get it. Like just this confidence of like he can transform, and yeah, it's really cool.
That's amazing. I love it.
Oh, I was talking to a friend the other day, and I was telling her something about, because he used to always need transition items, and now with COVID at his school, he can't bring everything he knows he owns to school with him. And I said, which is really good, because when he has a job, he's not going to be able to bring his guitar and 87 Matchbox cars and 12
Right.
books to his job. So his employer is going to be really glad that his school took this stand, and he's getting used to going to school without stuff. And my friend said, that's really cool to hear you say you think he's going to have a job and be employable. And it was much like the conversation with my mom. Like it just came out, and it is, and it's all unfolding perfectly. And I don't have to worry. And because sometimes my friends would be like, "Oh, do you think he's going to end up in a home?" And then I would get like, that would bring up all this fear. And I'm like, why would he end up in a home? He has so many skills. Like, and unless he really wanted to go to a home for some reason, but I can't see him watching that because he really loves freedom. And so it's like not coming from a fearful place or
Right.
oh, we got to get him so this doesn't happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's more, who is he? The steps, like seeing a clear picture of and helping him get there. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yes. That's magic. Oh, I love it. I would keep going on this topic, but we actually have an Enchanted Circle call, so I'm going to wrap
We
up.
do.
Any other amazing things that you definitely want to share on your heart today?
It is my 1 year anniversary with my boyfriend. That I have stayed myself with, and I feel so like I've never been me in a relationship. I kind of surrendered me a few months in, it seems like, and now it's like I'm so me, and the things he does are what he does, and it's like if I choose to be here, I choose to be here, and it's not. I'm so different. That workshop I did with you really changed how I am in relationships. So it's kind of fun to be celebrating this year-long mark. Yeah.
I love it. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you
you.
for sharing this moment with us. Thank you all for listening, and make sure to come back and check out what's awesome in Annie's life next time. Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Cassie.
Thank you for joining us today. If you are inspired and you're ready to start writing a new money story, a new life story, to really pick the pin up and design your happy ever after, go to enchantedlifeu.com. That's enchantedlifeu.com to get started. For any links that we talked about in the show, you can find the show notes at manifestingsuccessstories.com.